Welcome to this week's edition of Conquering Retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio are two financial advisors from Northern Alliance Financial, based right here in the great state of Maine. We have Peter Hansen and Derek Hewitt. Peter and Derek, always joy to be with you. How are you both doing?
Good. It didn't take too long, and we're back again.
Yes, yeah, right? Like the week flies by, for sure. Well, and I know that in addition to doing the television show and meeting with folks, you've had a lot of people calling in and coming in to get their complimentary written financial plan from you, and of course the complimentary book that you offer with that appointment as well. But you also do a lot of live events in this area. So talk a little bit about those events and how folks can connect with you in person that way as well.
Sure. And folks can go to nafinancialadvisors.com to go to our website and look to see at all those workshops that are planned out. Derek and I just sat down and we planned out the rest of the year starting in September all the way through Christmas, right up until Christmas.
Yeah.
And Derek and I represent most of the southern area, but don't forget there's Jeremy and Lance in the mid-coast, and now we have Blake and Cameron that we're doing the mid-coast in northern Maine.
Right.
So we have a team of 6, which has grown significantly.
I love that. You've got the whole state covered, right?
That's right.
And do you choose different topics for these live events? Talk a little bit about what happens at those.
Yeah, so, you know, the pillar to what we do is education. And, you know, that's one way that we go about educating. And to answer your question, yes, we do choose different topics. Our 2 main topics are asset preservation, which is an 1.5 to 2 hour workshop where we have an estate planning attorney come speak as well. And then we also have a Social Security, and it's ways to maximize your Social Security for those folks that have assets on the outside and want to know how to utilize those in retirement.
Right.
We also do the radio, and then we have our great television shows we do, which folks can catch that on the website. It's all education. It's the way we educate. You know, we specialize in working with folks that are retired or getting ready to retire. So, you know, those folks who are 10, 15 years out, you know, now's the time to start to plan, and we want to get in front of you and give you the options and the information that you need.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
So again, that website, they can go look at all the events?
Yeah, nafinancialadvisors.com.
Yes.
And then there we actually have our recorded TV shows as well as our radio shows, I believe. If they're not uploaded now, they will be soon.
Right, so you get to see and listen to past episodes and get connected to you all week long. I love it. So nafinancialadvisors.com is that website to check out. Well, as you mentioned, you specialize in helping people who are nearing and entering retirement. With being in that phase of life comes a very important decision, which can be so complex and so confusing. When should you start claiming your Social Security? And so that's what we're going to start off today's show talking about. It's all about timing, right? And it's such a personal, individualized decision.
Yeah, with Social Security, prior to let's see, October of 2015, there were multiple ways people could maximize their Social Security, from file and suspend to file a restricted
application, right?
Application, exactly. Derek and I had actually run a workshop at the University of New England in Biddeford. I believe it was 2 days before that Budget Act was passed.
Wow.
In which we had gone through with about 65 to 70 people. We explained how to go ahead and file and suspend, especially for married couples. There was a myriad of ways people could maximize their benefits.
Right.
And then 2 days later, you know, Congress met in the middle of the night, and they changed all that. They took a lot of those away. So we had to call all of those people and say, still come in, but a lot of these things that we were talking about are now off the table.
Have changed,
So there's still ways to maximize your benefits.
This is one of the risks that we talked about on the previous show when we were talking about taxes. Is legislative risk. You know, we talked on the previous show about legislative risks when it comes to, you know, your retirement in the future, raising taxes.
The government can just make changes, right?
And there's an example when it came to Social Security. It used to be pretty common to do some sort of what we call file and suspend, or what we did call file and suspend for Social Security for married couples.
Right.
It was a way to maximize, to let yours grow. And the government basically overnight did away with that. And they make it easy for you in some sense. I mean, when you want to go file as a spouse, if you're married, it's either half of their benefit or your full benefit, depending on your age. Obviously, it could be a little bit reduced if you're not your full retirement age.
Right.
Which for folks, you know, that's going to be most likely 67 for you, or 66 in some odd months.
Yeah, it depends on the year that you were born. Yeah, for sure. You know, you mentioned that season of life in 2015. So at the time, I was traveling nationwide as a financial educator, doing an entire seminar just on the Social Security claiming strategies. And, you know, it was so complex then, but there were a lot of good benefits of utilizing those strategies. Now those strategies are gone, but here's the reality. There's still over 567 mathematical calculations and computations to figure out when is the optimal time for you. And I think that the words maximizing Social Security get thrown around a lot, But really, wouldn't you agree that it's more about optimizing the right time for someone to start claiming?
Absolutely. So what we're not saying is don't worry about Social Security. There's nothing you can do. Without a doubt, you want to get a plan set in place to maximize versus optimize. You want to think of Social Security as one leg of a three-legged stool.
Okay.
You have Social Security as part of your retirement planning. You have your savings, and you have your retirement accounts. The third leg used to be pension, right?
Right.
Pensions have kind of gone by the wayside.
Right.
So a lot of people are almost relying more and more on Social Security, is what we're finding. They're saying, well, that's going to be there, although what's all this in the news and what's going to happen with it? There's still worth coming in to sit with somebody that can run what's called a Social Security report. And we do that for everybody that comes in. That's one of the 7 things that we talk to everybody about first when folks come in to an
awesome.
optimization report.
Yeah.
And we'll run that algorithm for folks so that they can see what would be the best way to maximize their Social Security, because there's still some benefit that you can use.
One thing that's important is, as long as you have assets on the outside, because unfortunately in this day and age there are people that are living on Social Security. I don't know how. Because it's difficult this day with inflation.
Well, and over 40% of Americans are getting half of their retirement income currently from Social Security. That's a little terrifying.
In that situation, the planning is easy. I mean, you need to file as soon as possible because you need the money.
Right.
So for those folks that have assets, have retirement accounts, and want to know how to utilize those and come and bring those into play to structure an income plan, incorporating their Social Security at the right time, that's what we want to do for you.
Yeah,
and we're able to do that often. And it's about understanding Social Security too. Understanding, if you collect it before your full retirement age, and you're working and making over 21 or 22,000, it's
a low income level, right?
Yeah. You're going to get a heavy reduction, and you're already going to get a reduction from collecting it before your full retirement age. So these are some of the things that we want to bring into play. Have folks understand how Social Security works, and then how we can utilize that to, to maximize their income and help them not outlive.
Absolutely.
The rest of their stuff.
So much gold that you just shared. You were talking about the give backs, right? So if you earn too much money and you're still working and you're collecting Social Security, they're going to take $1 of every $2 over that limit. I always say, what the government giveth, the government loveth to taketh away, right? I mean, that's the problem. You have to plan for that, and a lot of folks aren't aware of it. Also, it depends on your health. Right? If someone is in good health and they, their longevity looks to be good, that could make them decide to take it later. But if someone's health is not good, maybe it makes sense to go ahead and start earlier, right? I mean, there's just a lot of personal factors that can far outweigh the math.
That's right. And our office used to be, well, it's still in Saco, just a different location. Our office used to be in the Social Security building right on Main Street.
Interesting.
Yeah, they were floor 4A and we were floor 3A. And folks would go visit Social Security first, then come down and visit us. And we would say, what did Social Security tell you? And they'd say, well, the Social Security office can only tell us if we would like to file now, here's how to do it. They don't have the time to sit with you and say, okay, gosh, look, you have this IRA over here. Let's let your Social Security continue to build up, 8% for every year beyond your full retirement age, and you can draw from your IRA instead. They can't tell you that. Well, we can. So before you go pull the trigger, we encourage you to meet with Social Security, but meet with somebody that can lay out a plan for you prior to you going and setting and filing for Social Security.
I'm so glad you brought that up because, to your point, you can call Social Security, but they are not allowed to give you personalized advice. They can only give you information. The only way you're going to get that kind of personalized, individualized financial advice for yourself and your situation is by meeting someone like yourselves.
Right.
Yeah, for the folks that call in today, what we're offering is a consultation, a financial consultation to look at the assets and, more importantly, look at your Social Security and see if we can help plan for tomorrow by putting a plan in place that'll work for today. And, with the Social Security plan, this is incorporating your other assets and helping you figure out a way to maximize your income. We're going to look at your taxes. We're going to do a portfolio analysis to run through and really analyze the fees and the drawdowns in your current retirement. And then what we'll do is typically the first appointment is a chance to sit down, have a conversation, and educate ourselves and yourselves about what you have. From there, we'll book a follow-up appointment to review everything. We run a Morningstar report, a Quantity report, and a Social Security report. So there's a lot of reports. But we just want you to understand things, and we want to make sure that we can help you understand as much as possible. And if we think we can help you, we'll talk what that might look like for you. So give us a call. We're happy to help you today.
Wonderful. Derek, Peter, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, again, this is for no cost, no charge, no obligation. It's simply an invitation to have a conversation to see how the team of Northern Alliance Financial can help and serve you. To claim yours, simply call that number on the bottom of your screen, 877-241-7430. Or if you have your smartphone handy, you're also welcome to connect that way. If you pull it out, open up that camera app, just point, click, and scan the QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Northern Alliance will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary visit that way as well. We'll be back with more Conquering Retirement right after this.
Our team at Northern Alliance is very diverse in terms of the services that we offer.
We do take a team-based approach.
We carry multiple licenses so that clients can do everything within the Northern Alliance financial team.
If it has anything to do with retirement, that's what we specialize in.
Budget planning, tax considerations, Social Security strategies, risk management, long-term care, Medicare, health planning, as well as legal and estate planning.
We really are a one-stop shop.
There's Lance Gilman, Peter Hansen, Jeremy Barnard, myself. We do have a staff that is great.
In Maine, we have multiple locations to cover the vast array of the state.
You know, you can come in and have a conversation in person. And a lot of people are looking for these days. Things after COVID have changed to more Zoom, phone call sort of things. And we'll do those things, but we appreciate and would rather have you come in person and have a conversation face to face like this.
We're pretty approachable, and we're going to listen to you. We're going to try to determine what your needs, your aspirations, those goals are, and then we're going to do everything that we possibly can to help you meet those goals.
It's lighthearted, it's carefree. We laugh like crazy. An atmosphere that I don't think is common in a lot of other practices.
We were talking about how well the team is bonding together, how similarly we all think in that what we do, we want to actually make a difference.
Average everyday people helping average everyday people.
You know, we truly do put the client first.
Our mantra has been, when you take care of people, people take care of you.
Well, welcome back, Maine. You're watching Conquering Retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with both Peter Hansen and Derek Hewitt from Northern Alliance Financial. A great conversation we're having today, and gosh, so much gold you shared right before the break, Derek, of everything that someone can expect, the value that you're going to receive by having a complimentary written financial plan. And there is a lot of value when you have that in writing in front of you with a solid plan in place for your retirement. This is a perfect segue to something I wanted to ask your opinion on. You know, we live in a world of do-it-yourself investors. A lot of people have been doing it on their own, think they can do it on their own, are doing it on their own. But all three of us at this desk are very familiar with the reality that a lot of times we're too close to our own stuff, right? To be able to see all the ins and outs, to look at things from a comprehensive perspective. There was a really eye-opening study that Vanguard did not that long ago. Would you comment and be able to share a little bit about what that study was about and what it showed?
Yeah, it was eye-opening when we read it. Vanguard did a study over folks over a 25-year period. The first set of folks were folks that were do-it-yourselfers. And everybody started, the two groups started off with $500,000.
Okay.
So the do-it-yourselfers, over a 25-year period, the average had was at 1.69 million. However, those that had a financial planner, it was more like 3.4 million at the end of the 25 years. So there's a valid argument for, does it make sense to go and seek the advice of a financial advisor? That study alone says, yes, it does.
Right.
And again, we do have a fair amount of people coming in that had been do-it-yourselfers, and now they're saying, you know what, I'm spending all my time watching this.
Right.
It's really
Because
stressful.
you have to, right?
That plus if the do-it-yourselfer were to pass and they have a spouse that doesn't do it, they're coming in looking for a place. But there's definitely at least a second opinion that would make sense.
Yeah.
And, you know, I also want to say that there's a lot of do-it-yourselfers that are very smart, intelligent people that are doing an okay job.
Right.
And what happens is we'll have other folks come in, maybe friends of them, who say, you can do this yourself, just do this. And so everybody's situation is different. If you don't understand and want to do it, then it's maybe not the best option. And sometimes you have these do-it-yourselfers who say, it's easy, just do this and do this. And it's like, they come in and they think it's that easy, and then they realize it's not. And that study shows you there's a lot to it.
Yes.
You know, this is something that we do every day. And to your point, you know, when it being your own money, sometimes you can make emotional decisions, and you want to try to take emotional decisions out of the planning process, because typically it doesn't work out.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things to add. So, I mean, there's so much value in having that independent, objective, third-party person who can look at your situation, and you don't know what you don't know, and it's so easy to make a decision in one area of your financial life without understanding all the consequences that could have over here and all the tax implications. And so that's why having that comprehensive, holistic point of view is so important. The other thing I think is really fascinating fascinating is that Vanguard is one of the world's largest money managers, which is primarily used by do-it-yourself investors. So I think it's very fascinating that they did this study. And the results spoke for themselves. I mean, there was so much value that a financial advisor can provide. And I think sometimes folks who are do-it-yourselfers, they're like, oh, I don't want to work with a financial advisor because I don't want to have to pay the advisory fee. But look at how much more they ended up with in their accounts.
And those numbers factored in the advisory fee as well.
Exactly. Right.
There's so much more to just how do you keep your money from diminishing and how to grow it. And we talk about that with everybody that comes in for an appointment. For that first consultation, we're going to talk about budget. What is your budget now, and what will that look like in 10, 15, and 20 years? Are you planning any big expenses? Have you already downsized your home? Then we want to talk about Medicare. A lot of people aren't factoring Medicare into their financial plan. They know they're going to be eligible at 65, but what's the difference between a Medicare Advantage plan and a Medicare Supplement plan? What's Part A, B, C? And then we get on to taxes. All right, what's a tax ramification to every move you make? If you're drawing too much down, you're going to bump up your Medicare Part B premium.
Right.
We want to talk about Social Security, of course. We talked about that in the last segment. And then we talk about long-term care. Now, we're not trying to sell long-term care insurance. If it's available and it makes sense, we will. But more so, people want to protect the assets that they have. You can do that financially. You can also do it legally. Legally means you meet with an estate planning attorney. We haven't mentioned that on this show yet, but everyone that meets with us does get a complimentary visit with an estate planning firm.
That's
amazing. It's complimentary, hour long. You can bring in your plan, have them review it. If you don't have a plan, they'll tell you what they suggest.
Wow.
Because you want your accountant, you want your estate planner, and you want your financial planner to all be on the same page.
And all working together.
Yeah. And then we get into the portfolio, and then we make the recommendations. But there's a lot more to it than just what ETF makes sense over mutual funds.
Right.
You have to take all this into account.
The other thing, too, is when you look at fees, sometimes what you get is, so I could have made this percent, but then when I pay my fee to you, I make this percent. Listen, when the market's doing well, anybody can manage it.
Yes.
Anybody can manage it. Back when we had our last bull market, I could have put equities, stocks, mutual funds on a board, had you throw darts, and just invested there, and you would have made money. It's not then where we really do our job. It's we're doing our job all the time, but it's much more into play. It's much harder once the market's not doing well. And how much can we save you? We're trying to limit the volatility in retirement.
Right.
And that's the important thing, and that's what we try to do through tactical money management.
Yes, and the fact that you're watching it all the time. I recently heard a story of a married couple that went in to meet with a financial advisor, and the husband was a do-it-yourselfer. And so he was like, oh, I'm fine, I got this. And he just wanted a second opinion, which is so wise, right? So he was, the appointment they thought was coming to a close because the guy was like, yep, you're on track, and everything was looking good. And the wife said, hold up. We have a problem here. I never see my husband, and we are not enjoying our retirement because this is what he is doing 24/7, and I don't want him doing it anymore. And I think a lot of folks who've enjoyed it in the past, there comes a time when you just don't want to have to be watching it all the time. So what a blessing that you are in your clients' corners and able to watch what's happening, knowing when to make those tweaks so that they can just sleep well at night and not have to stress about it.
Yeah, we're independent fiduciaries, meaning we're a bit agnostic as to which set of funds or which insurance products that we choose, because we're working for the client. We work as a group of independent fiduciaries called Northern Alliance Financial, but we represent the client. So we're going to work for them in making the best decisions on Social Security. What funds, whether ETFs versus mutual funds. So that's who we're working for. We don't work for Northern Alliance Financial. It's a little bit of a different take to financial planning.
And that term fiduciary means you all have a legal obligation to always serve the client's best interest. And that's an important distinction because not everyone in our industry has that licensing and is held to that fiduciary standard.
It's important. Being a fiduciary is becoming more and more important as we go on, and it's just about having a designation that really holds your feet to the fire. I mean, to make sure that we are recommending what is in your best interest and not what's suitable. That's very important. And we take our job seriously, and being fiduciaries tells you that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Peter, I'm curious, if someone's watching and they're a do-it-yourselfer and this is kind of resonating with them and they're like, oh, I don't know, maybe it is time to transition the reins over, what would you say to them?
Well, if you're a do-it-yourselfer or you just want a second opinion, give us a call. And what we'll do is we'll ask you to come in. We'll ask you to bring a few things. We'll ask you to bring your statements, bring a budget. We know what is it costing you to live the lifestyle that you live. We don't necessarily need your tax records, but we want to have an understanding as to what your goals are, what your plans are, and it's complimentary. We're going to sit and have a conversation as to what you're planning on doing. But with your statements, we can run what's called a portfolio X-ray. It's an actual Morningstar report. report, which shows what are the fees within your portfolio. More importantly, and Derek mentions this often, it's called a quanta report, which is a stress test. We stress test the holdings that they have over negative periods of time to see how well would you have done. How much did you lose in 2022? How would this account portfolio do in 2008? That's what we want to do to predict what we can expect for the future and what are your fees. So anybody that comes in is going to be getting that complimentary. As well as, of course, Lance Gilman's book, Conquering Retirement. He's a retired lieutenant colonel, and he did a fantastic job writing that book, and we're trying to get it out to as many people as possible.
Wonderful. Well, I'm excited for more folks to connect with you. So much value that you provide with that complimentary written financial plan. And if you're not aware, a lot of firms out there will charge upwards of $1,000, $2,000. I've even heard up to $5,000 to receive a financial plan. The team of Northern Alliance Financial is giving you the opportunity to receive your written financial plan completely complimentary. So again, that number to call to claim yours is 877-241-7430. Or again, you're also welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back with more right after this.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Well, welcome back to Conquering Retirement. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Peter and Derek from Northern Alliance Financial. A great conversation we were having today about so much that can impact you in retirement. And one of the biggest changes for a lot of folks, this is why it's not our parents, our grandparents' retirement anymore, is that pensions have really become a thing of the past for a lot of folks. But I know that you and the team of Northern Alliance work so closely with a lot of folks who do have pensions in the state of Maine. And so I'm curious, let's talk a little bit about what some options are and how you help folks make the most of that pension income.
Well, if you're lucky enough to have a pension, which means chances are you've been in the employment sector for a good period of time and you started off with a company that has that, sometimes you have options. Sometimes you have the option of taking the annuity from the pension, and then you might have a second option, would be a lump sum. We find oftentimes, for example, Maine Health in southern Maine, all throughout Maine, if folks have been there for a good period of time, they might have one and even two different versions of the pension there. And with Maine Health, they have the option of taking out the lump sum. We find more often than not it makes sense to entertain the idea of taking out the lump sum, and now it's in your control. Now you have the ability to make the decisions as to what happens versus taking the annuity, because if they take the annuity from that pension, and then something happens to them and they didn't choose a joint or they have no other beneficiaries, the money stays with the carrier. As opposed to if you move the lump sum over under your control, now if something happens to you, it's going to go to your kids, your grandkids, and et cetera.
Right.
And there's multiple other reasons for moving a pension.
Yeah, one thing I want to stress to the viewers is that when you have that pension option and you can annuitize it through through your company, you can take out income payments for the rest of your life, that usually is not the best option. That income payment might look pretty good. It might be pretty high. An example, I had a client that we recently did this with. The client had a fairly high income payment that they could have collected the rest of his life through the company. And we decided to do a lump sum pension instead, enroll it into a different income product. And the reason being is because if he took the income through the company, what would have happened is the income, if he passed away, that lump sum goes away. We're talking about $500,000.
Wow.
So if he collects that income at about $3,000 a month, and let's say he passes away in a year, that's $36,000 he's collected, and then the rest of it goes. Doesn't go to his beneficiaries, doesn't go to anybody.
Yeah.
What we did is we actually put that into a joint income product that will pay him and his spouse out the rest of their lives. And if something happens to him and his spouse, then the kids who are the contingent beneficiaries are going to get the money as well. So it's a situation where somebody gets the money and it doesn't stay there. And so that's one of the biggest reasons why I wouldn't take the income payment through most of the options that you have with your employer.
Right. It's so important to read the fine print to understand the ramifications, right? And, especially I'm passionate about financial education for all people, but I started off in my career doing financial education specifically for women. It is so important for spouses to be on the same page with this, to understand the ramifications, because a lot of times as women, we are living longer than men. And, you know, it would be so devastating to think, oh, I've got this pension income, my husband has a pension, he passes away, poof, it's gone. You have to have a better plan in place.
Yeah, with a pension, get a second opinion. It's so important. And, you know, we seem a little biased. We're saying come in and visit with us. We are saying come in and visit with us. But again, we're fiduciaries.
Yes.
We have no interest in making recommendations unless it's going to be in your best interest. And I would say 6 to 7 people this year have already turned away saying, you know what, you're in good shape. Your advisor's doing okay. Or you're doing it yourself and you really, you know, have trouble relinquishing control, whatever it is.
Right.
But we have to make that recommendation of keep doing what you're doing if, in fact, it's in their best interest.
Yes.
Oftentimes, we can even just offer advice to folks. But
Right.
for the most part, if you're serious about making an appointment to come in, what we want to do is actually go through everything with you and give you that second opinion. But we actually, like Derek said, educate you as to why.
Yes.
We don't want to just tell you what to do. We want to tell you why we're making that recommendation.
For sure. Well, and a lot of folks watching don't have a pension, but the good news is that they have the ability to potentially create their own personal pension, and you can help them do that, right?
Yeah. You know, for folks that are viewing today, give us a call. Whether you have a pension or not, we can look at how to produce your own pension, your own income plan that you can't outlive. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we know what we're doing. We've been doing this for a while, and we want to take our knowledge and pass it on to you and be able to provide you with a plan that you can, you know, just retire and just enjoy retirement and not be worried about money. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, listen, if you're open to some suggestions and some ideas, we're happy to take a look and see if we can benefit you. And so give us a call. And for folks who do come in for that consultation, we are offering Conquering Retirement. Our CEO, Lance Gilman, retired lieutenant colonel in the military, has written this book. It's called Conquering Retirement because he sort of brings into play some of his battlefield experience into retirement planning. It sort of is a battle as well. Sometimes it feels like an upward battle when you're dealing with taxes and inflation, but it's a battle nonetheless. And so that's for those folks who come in for a consultation. They will also get this book as well.
I love that you're offering that, and I love that you all are so passionate about helping folks navigate retirement successfully, because this is what you do day in and day out. This is your expertise. So I'm excited for more folks in Maine to be able to connect with you. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. And thank you for joining us. Again, to claim your complimentary written financial plan, all you need to do is call that number on the bottom of your screen, 877-241-7430, or scan that QR code, and that will get you connected as well. Be safe, be happy, be blessed, and we look forward to being back with you next time here on Conquering Retirement.